CTV News with Matt Grillo.
Good evening. There are concerns for family medicine in the province. New numbers show many medical residency spots are going unfilled. In Quebec, students are questioning their futures. They say the political climate has contributed to the uncertainty. Laurence Brisson-Dubreuil reports.
At McGill, medical student Adam Munsef says a shift is happening among his classmates.
There's people who are starting to look elsewhere because of the ambiguity, the uncertainty.
He says it's no longer just about picking the right specialty or program, but about politics and stability.
Now students are starting to look at the electoral cycle and the relationships between physicians and the government.
Quebec now has the most unfilled family medicine residencies in the country, 146 after the first round. That's more than the rest of Canada combined. Family doctor Michael Kalin says the tone of recent debates is taking a toll.
That's because of years of hostility towards family medicine, and this has rubbed off on the new graduates, and they are afraid to go into a profession which has been under siege by the government for so long.
The timing is critical. About 22% of Quebec family doctors are over 60 and nearing retirement.
I'm terrified because we don't have young blood coming in, young interest. On the other hand, I'm terrified because I don't know if the government even sees family medicine in the future of primary care.
For many students, the political climate has been hard to ignore, leaving some questioning their future in the system.
We've been working so hard in the last few years to get there, and suddenly we didn't know what our future would be like. We feel powerless not to be able to help our patients.
She says if more is expected, more support has to follow, including better access to specialists and resources. Munsef says what's at stake goes beyond numbers and into the quality of care.
When a francophone trained physician or a French-speaking student leaves Quebec, that loss is hard to replace because language concordant care is not replaceable.
The solution may not be simple, but from students to veteran doctors, the ask is clear. They want a seat at the table to help shape the system and protect access for the patients who depend on it. Laurence Brisson-Dubreuil, CTV News.
A Quebec couple who cannot have a baby are looking to adopt. They've been told the wait time to adopt in Quebec is 15 to 20 years. It comes as Quebec has imposed a moratorium on international adoptions. Christine Long has their story.
University educated with good jobs and their own home in Laval, Natalia Cristancho Mercado and her husband Michel Jalbou want to be parents.
It's very hard when you have to talking about your fertility.
Their difficulty conceiving has them looking to adopt a child.
We would like to offer a safe and lovely home, a child, so we are ready.
They were told the waiting list to adopt a child in Quebec could take up to 2 decades. They've applied to be foster parents, but say they haven't heard any news in 3 months.
My first option is Quebec, but it's not, can I do it in Ontario? If not, I have to do it in an international.
In 2024, the Legault government announced a moratorium on international adoptions, preventing Quebecers from adopting a child from abroad or even from another province because of child trafficking worries.
It's a really difficult situation because we don't have real options to adopt.
Cristancho Mercado wrote to Premier Legault and members of the National Assembly about their situation. Only one person called her back, Marwa Risky.
So what if we just focus on the country that we do have problem and keep the ban for this country, but for the other country, we should just lift the ban. And I don't understand how come Ontario, who have the same good standard as we do here in Quebec for adoption, they don't have any ban, and why we do have here a ban for international adoption. I don't think it's fair for all the family waiting for a baby, for their first baby, and many of them, they just want to have a little family. And I hope that Natalia can actually have her family before Christmas.
CTV Montreal reached out to the Health and Justice Ministries as well as the Secretariat for Adoptions, but did not get a response. The couple says they feel pushed to leave Quebec if they want to be parents.
The time is running, and I am in my 40s. And we would like to have a family, and if the government don't move, I have to take a decision for my family because it's our dream.
Doing an urgent plea to the government to revise this moratorium in international adoption.
Christine Long, CTV News.
Diet and exercise have long been prescribed for those diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, but a team of doctors at the Montreal Heart Institute found it not only lessens symptoms, but in some cases, it can also reverse the disease. Denise Roberts reports.
As a preventive cardiologist, Dr. Josep Iglesias Grau's job is to prevent heart attacks before they happen. And that means looking for warning signs, including blood sugar levels.
So prediabetes means that blood sugar is starting to be higher than normal.
It's often linked to obesity and a diet high in ultra-processed foods. It's no surprise then that diet plays a key role in treating prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. But Dr. Iglesias Grau and the team at the Montreal Heart Institute have been studying how it can lead to a potential cure.
So it's not just controlling the disease, we try really to reverse the disease, going to the root of the cause, which is particularly lifestyles on top of genetical causes.
The team has developed a program that follows patients as they change their lifestyles for 1 year by drastically cutting out ultra-processed foods, adopting regular exercise, and weight training. Participants lost more than just pounds.
We have seen that these patients doing a more intensive lifestyle intervention, they reach up to 50% of remission of prediabetes and up to 38% of remission of type 2 diabetes.
Claude Brion is part of the Disease Remission Clinic study. Though he managed to lose a lot of weight in 2011, he suffered a stroke in 2023 and found out he was pre-diabetic. For a year, he followed a tailored diet, including intermittent fasting and an exercise plan. He's now in remission.
There was small things that made a lot of difference.
Another part of his lifestyle change is meditation.
You can have very good diet, exercise, and things like that, but if you're not handling your stress, then that's going to have an impact.
And he plans on making these changes permanent. But not every patient has the same commitment.
We know from other studies that there are some patients that relapse, and that's also very important. That's why we call it remission and not cure, because some patients can relapse.
That's why he says there needs to be a focused shift on how to prevent prediabetes before it develops into something serious. Some of his best tips: learn to identify and dramatically reduce ultra-processed foods, cook and eat at home, and focus on building muscle mass. Small steps that can lead to a healthier life. Denise Roberts, CTV News.
We are hearing once again from the Artemis II crew.
Integrity, this is the Canadian Space Agency. How do you hear me?
We have you loud and clear, CSA. It's a great question.
Overnight, Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen answering questions from Canadians across the country, including elementary school students. One child asked what the astronauts eat in space, and they got a very Canadian answer.
Here's the maple syrup that we opened up and had at lunchtime today. So we had a little bit of Canada on board today, and I shared it with my crewmates, and I think they enjoyed that, so it was great.
And Easter is also being marked beyond Earth. American astronaut Victor Glover delivered an Easter message aboard the Artemis II mission as it makes its way to the moon.
As we are so far from Earth and looking back at, the beauty of creation, I think for me, one of the really important personal perspectives that I have up here is I can really see Earth as one thing. And, when I read the Bible and I look at all of the amazing things that were done for us who were created, it's you have this amazing place, this spaceship. You guys are talking to us because we're in a spaceship really far from Earth, but you're on a spaceship called Earth that was created to give us a place to live in the universe, in the cosmos. I think maybe the distance we are from you makes you think what we're doing is special, but we're the same distance from you, and I'm trying to tell you, just trust me, you are special. In all of this emptiness, this is a whole bunch of nothing, this thing we call the universe. You have this oasis, this beautiful place that we get to exist together. I think as we go into Easter Sunday, thinking about, all the cultures all around the world, whether you celebrate it or not, whether you believe in God or not, this is an opportunity for us to remember where we are, who we are, and that we are the same thing and that we got to get through this together.
Glover's message comes as the crew aboard continues toward their lunar flyby. Now closer to the moon than to Earth. And with more, here's space historian Jordan Bim.
A lot of people have been focused on the distance record of this mission. And yes, it does look like this crew will become the furthest humans ever out in space. But for me, it's less about the distance and it's more about the differences that we're seeing with the older missions. So, of course, there's a difference. This is the first time we've left low Earth orbit in 53 years. The crew looks very different and come from very different backgrounds than the Apollo astronauts did, especially Jeremy Hansen making history as the first non-American to leave low Earth orbit.
A warning tonight, scammers are sending texts claiming people are eligible for a milk settlement. But there is no such thing. As Kathy Lee reports, fraudsters are using real cases to make these scams more believable.
This message is showing up on phones across Canada, claiming people are eligible for a milk settlement. But there is no such case. Don Stoneman received a text saying it caught his attention.
I looked at it and I thought it was kind of interesting.
A link is included leading to a website. Chris Herman, who also got the message, says it looked legitimate at first.
The site mimicked a federal government site. They were asking for my credit card information and all that kind of stuff. And then I went, no, that's not it. Not good.
A cybersecurity expert says scammers are taking real class action cases like the bread price fixing settlement and turning them into phishing campaigns. They're even inventing settlements that don't exist while leveraging trust from real ones. However, there are simple steps people can take to protect themselves.
Just Google the name of the lawsuit. Don't click on any links in any emails or any text messages and whatever. Go to the source.
According to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, cyber scams, including fake settlement texts, are part of a much larger problem, with Canadians losing more than $2.4 billion since 2022, much of it online, and likely only a fraction of the total, as just 5 to 10% of cases are reported. A class action lawyer says when real settlements are paid, it's usually by e-transfer.
All they need is your email address. So they don't need to ask for your bank account information. They don't need to ask for a credit card.
Neither Stoneman or Herman lost money.
I'm 70 years old, but I don't think I'm especially susceptible to scams. I think I'm fairly sharp.
But they say the experience is a warning for others. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
The Montreal Canadiens have officially clinched a playoff spot, with the Detroit Red Wings losing this afternoon. The Habs are now playoff bound. The Canadiens will be on the ice tonight against New Jersey. Forward Cole Caulfield didn't get his much anticipated 50th goal last night, but the 25-year-old will have another chance tonight on home ice. With last night's 4-3 win against the Devils, the Canadiens reached the 100-point mark for the first time since the 2016-2017 season. All of this is leading to much excitement and anticipation, and that means expensive tickets. On Ticketmaster earlier today, prices ranged from $600 on the low end to nearly $3,000 in the lower bowl. Here's Sean Campbell from TSN 690.
So heading into the Bell Center against New Jersey after a 5-game road trip, what a celebration it's going to be with Detroit losing. Montreal is in the playoffs. They have clinched 100 points, and now they will party before the game, and then they plan to party in the game when Cole Caulfield scores 50. He did not score in New Jersey last night, missed their Saturday night. He's saving it for Sunday to do it in front of his fans. So I think everyone heading to the Bell Center, everybody paying attention to the game tonight, is all about Cole Caulfield hitting 50 goals on the season, because the Canadiens have officially clinched a playoff spot.
And a major shakeup in the hockey world. Patrick Roy was fired as coach of the New York Islanders today, with the team in the middle of a spring tailspin that has put its playoff chances in jeopardy. Peter DeBoer has been named Roy's replacement with 4 games left in the season. The Islanders have lost 4 in a row and 7 of their past 10 games.
So the Islanders have been struggling of late. They haven't really been vaulting up the standings. They're in a playoff position, but they're battling with everybody else in the wild card and in the Metropolitan Division. So Matthew Darche, new GM, came in. Patrick Roy was already there. He sees a coach like Pete DeBoer sitting on the sidelines. Pete DeBoer is one of the top coaches that was a free agent, and he didn't want to wait any longer. He felt that now's the time, bring in Pete DeBoer, give this team a little bit of a spark in the final week before they possibly make the playoffs.
The city of Montreal is making changes to its work from home policy. This week, the city announced it will require 6,000 employees to work in the office 3 days a week. The change takes effect September 14th. At a press conference Thursday, Mayor Soraya Martinez-Ferrada said 3 days a week is a balanced decision. The Union for the Workers says it wants to add telework as part of contract negotiations that are already underway. And a reminder now of what's open and closed tomorrow, which is still a holiday for some. City offices will be closed Monday, as will Canada Post and SAAQ service offices. But Monday is a normal business day for commercial establishments, including banks and the SAQ. Wind gusts and heavy rain overnight and throughout the day caused power outages for thousands of hydro clients. At the height of the outages, there were more than 24,000 customers without power. By the afternoon, that number was down to more than 3,000 clients. The worst hit area was the Eastern Townships and the Montérégie. The deadline is approaching to remove your driveway tempo. Boroughs don't all have the same deadline for taking them down, but April 15th is the date for many. Make sure to check the City of Montreal's website for your neighborhood. Fines for not taking them down in time range from $400 to $800. And with that, let's have a look at weather. It is 9 degrees in Montreal, 6 in Sherbrooke, 4 degrees in Quebec City. A bit of a colder day tomorrow, though. 1 degree for your wake up with clouds. Will warm up to 4 degrees in the afternoon with a bit of sun by evening. Temps will continue to drop into Tuesday, but then it's going to warm up with a high of 6 degrees on Wednesday. We'll have highs of 15 and 14 on Thursday and Friday. After the break, the U.S. airman missing in the Middle East is rescued as Trump makes a new threat to Iran. And in his first Easter Mass, Pope Leo calls for world peace. President Trump issued another threat today against Iran if they don't open up the critical Strait of Hormuz. It comes amid the word that the second U.S. airman who went missing after his aircraft was shot down over Iran has been rescued. Britt Clennett reports.
This morning, President Trump with a profanity-laced post on his social media platform suggesting he will target bridges and power plants in Iran if they don't open up the Strait of Hormuz. This as a top Iranian official threatens to close another strait in the region.
We're seeing that the conflict is continuing with the president beginning to, in conjunction with Israel, significantly diminish Iran's military capabilities.
The president speaking after his post to ABC's Rachel Scott by phone this morning, saying the conflict should be wrapped up in days, not weeks, adding he did not see American troops on the ground as necessary, but when asked if there's anything off the table, he said, quote, very little.
The American people are not going to accept ground troops being put into harm's way in this war of choice when there's no clear evidence that it actually is designed to improve our national security interests.
Meanwhile, the second U.S. crew member who remained missing after his warplane was shot down last week over Iran has been rescued. President Trump posting overnight saying the U.S. military pulled off one of the most daring search and rescue operations in U.S. history, adding that the American colonel is safe and sound. A senior administration official telling ABC News the CIA launched a deception campaign inside Iran that U.S. forces had already found the airman who was being moved out of the country on the ground. During the rescue, U.S. officials say they deliberately destroyed 2 C-130 aircraft due to mechanical difficulties so they wouldn't fall into Iranian hands, as well as 4 MH-6 Little Bird helicopters. Replacement aircraft flew the airmen out of enemy territory. Britt Clennett, ABC News, Jerusalem.
This afternoon, Donald Trump posted a new and cryptic post on social media. The president posting Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, in a potential reference to extending the deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran's parliamentary speaker responding to Trump's threats on social media today. He says the president's, quote, reckless moves are dragging the U.S. into a living hell and that the whole region is going to burn, because he's taking commands from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In his Easter message today, Pope Leo called on leaders to put an end to the ongoing conflicts around the world. Marcus Moore reports.
This morning, the first American Pope delivering his Easter message to a world at war.
Fratelli e sorelle.
Brothers and sisters, Christ is risen. Happy Easter.
In Vatican City, tens of thousands filling St. Peter's Square for Easter Mass as Pope Leo XIV marks his first Easter as pontiff. This Easter's Urbi et Orbi message, a Latin phrase meaning to the city and the world, a sweeping papal address on global affairs, delivered only at Christmas, Easter, and at the election of a new pope.
La croce di Cristo.
The 70-year-old born in Chicago calling for peace around the world, with Russia's war in Ukraine in its 5th year and the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran now in its 2nd month.
On this day of celebration, let us abandon every desire for conflict, domination, and power, and implore the Lord to grant his peace to a world ravaged by wars.
This is Pope Leo's first Holy Week, full of historic moments. Pope Leo overnight presiding over an Easter vigil at St. Peter's Basilica, baptizing 10 new Catholics. And on Good Friday, becoming the first pope in more than 30 years to carry the wooden cross to all 14 stations at Rome's Colosseum. Leo was elected nearly a year ago this May, following the passing of Pope Francis the morning after Easter.
Polacco.
And today, as the faithful witness history-making moments inside the Vatican, they pray for peace beyond its walls. And after today's Easter Mass, Pope Leo boarding the Pope-mobile and greeting the thousands of faithful in St. Peter's Square.
Government House Leader and Minister of Transport Stephen McKinnon is pushing back against Conservative calls to scrap a proposed high-speed rail line between Toronto and Quebec City. He made the comments in an interview on CTV Question Period.
In terms of the Conservatives, they used to think big. Brian Mulroney used to think big. Heavens, John A. Macdonald, used to think in terms of building an intercontinental railroad. The Conservative Party itself, at their last convention, passed a resolution.
This comes after Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre called on the federal government to cancel the proposed Alto high-speed rail project, estimated to cost up to $90 billion. Construction of the first phase of the 1,000-kilometer rail line linking Montreal and Ottawa is set to start towards the end of the decade. When two teenagers, provinces apart, allegedly discussed plans to attack schools this month, they were intercepted online by a network of police organizations. It's an example of what coordinated policing looks like. Paul Hollingsworth explains.
When police launch digital investigations, they require a lot of online research.
These kinds of crimes have no borders.
Law enforcement works closely with social media platforms to uncover suspicious posts and messages.
It's usually because that electronic service provider, such as Discord or Facebook or Instagram, notes something of concern.
In February, RCMP say a 14-year-old in Manitoba began talking about a plan online with a 15-year-old in Nova Scotia.
It was specific to killing and murdering other students.
The alleged plot was uncovered following a tip from Interpol and the FBI. Both teenagers were later arrested.
The extent of any plan or conversation, that all needs to be evaluated.
Police could only act after they were made aware of the threats.
Unless we're notified of a threat or we obtain judicial authorization, that's when the police will be able to review your email.
Cybersecurity experts say it's an example of a highly technical investigation involving multiple law enforcement agencies.
We need to be competent in traditional ways of policing, but also in the new digital forms of policing as well.
Following the mass shooting in Tumbler Ridge, BC that saw 8 people killed along with the shooter, Ritesh Kotak says there's increased awareness as police try to stop violence. He argues big tech platforms need to be more vigilant when reporting suspicious online activity.
At what point should platforms be held accountable to turn over certain pieces of information that could lead to an arrest?
For investigators, one of the biggest challenges is determining if an online threat is real and if action should be taken. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Still to come, major changes coming next week in Quebec politics. We have the latest with political analyst Raphael Melançon. And the pushback over a Chinese electric vehicle plant potentially opening in Ontario. It was a big week in Quebec politics. Thursday was François Legault's final day at the National Assembly as Premier. And in exactly 1 week, the CAQ will elect a new leader. That means Quebec will have a new Premier. To talk more about this, we are joined by political analyst Raphael Melançon. Hi, Raphael. Good to see you.
Good evening, Matt. Thank you for having me.
So we don't often see a send-off like the one we saw on Thursday for François Legault. Premiers, they sometimes lose in elections. They resign rather quickly. What did you think of Thursday and all the tributes being paid to François Legault?
Well, indeed, you're right to mention it's a rare thing in Quebec politics, because the last time we had seen such circumstances was when Lucien Bouchard left politics. That's 25 years ago already. So a very rare event in politics. And I think it was the right thing to do for François Legault, because it allows him first to, of course, control the message as he leaves, but also leave with dignity instead of having to go through a general election, losing that election. And in the case of François Legault here this year, it would probably have meant to see his party, the party that he established himself, being completely wiped out from the Quebec electoral map. So it was the right thing to do. And here what we saw this week was a situation that commended respect, because in the end, we can disagree with François Legault on his policies. We can think that his track record is not as good as it could have been after 8 years in power. But in the end, it's also a man that gave nearly 3 decades of his life to Quebec politics, to doing his best to improve the situation of our society, of our province. So we saw a lot of people from all parties basically paying tribute to François Legault. One thing, though, I would say, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon could have avoided going too partisan when he criticized Legault on the third way and the improvement that he made over the past 8 years with the federal government. That was maybe not really of the right circumstances, but in the end, all parties were pretty respectful, and it was a very emotional moment at the National Assembly for a lot of people.
As we mentioned, the new CAQ leader will be chosen next Sunday. What do you think becomes the main priority for a new premier?
I think the main priority right now, as it is for any member of that party, is to save their party, to save the CAQ. And in order to do that, it's a fatigue party. After nearly 8 years in power, we see still in the polls, they're still very low in the polls. So they need to convince Quebecers that with a new leader, it's also a new party. And that new leader will soon have to appoint a new cabinet. And I hope that this new leader will surround himself or herself with fresh faces to show Quebecers that this is no longer François Legault's party. This is a new CAQ moving forward with a new agenda as well, new priorities as a government, because this new leader also becomes, as we know, the premier of the province the moment he or she is elected next weekend. So yes, it will be very important to mark in the minds of voters that this is not the same party, the party they are currently rejecting. So build a new way forward, a new path forward for Quebec under the CAQ in order to try and convince them to vote for their party in the next election.
And with that being said, the CAQ is struggling in the polls. It's been the case for a while. How does the new leader turn things around? Do they maybe perhaps think about proroguing the session and spending more time on the ground in the ridings, perhaps?
That's a very good question, Matt. And I would say there's probably 2 ways to see this. First of all, if it's Christine Fréchette, she has to get people to know her better. It could be an advantage as much as a disadvantage for her, because at the same time, she can define herself in the minds of voters. So it's a good opportunity for her to seize. On the other side, if it's Bernard Drinville, we see in the polls that he would not be really changing voting intentions if he were to become the leader of the CAQ. So he needs to change the population's perception of his leadership so that he can try and turn things around here. So it's 2 very different scenarios here, 2 very different profiles that we have. And in the end, if they want to turn things around, there's either one option would be to either launch a snap election to try and surprise their opponents. So let's say in May, they could go and see the lieutenant governor and ask for parliament to be dissolved so we could have a vote as soon as June, for instance, before the summer holidays. Or the other option would be to remain in power, keep doing your job as premier, show Quebecers that this is a new administration, and wait until the election as it is planned for next fall.
Well, an exciting and important week ahead for the province. Raphael Melançon, thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you very much, Matt, and happy Easter to everybody at home.
Time now for In Case You Missed It. There is a call for Quebec to ban the sale of energy drinks to minors. The call comes from the parents of a teenager who died after drinking one. Olivia O'Malley reports.
Zachary Miron was a picture of health. The 15-year-old enjoyed fishing and 24 after drinking one can of the energy drink Red Bull.
What we're living right now, nobody has to go through that.
The teenager was with his class at Morin Heights Ski Hill, north of Montreal. A combination of his ADHD medication and the energy drink caused an arrhythmia, leading to his sudden death.
He decided to, with a friend, like, oh, let's buy a Red Bull. So they bought a Red Bull from the vending machine in the cafeteria. So he drank the Red Bull, and it was in the chairlift, and his heart stopped. And that was the end.
Since then, his parents Veronica Martinez and David Miron have been campaigning to ban the sale of energy drinks to minors. Almost 15,000 people have signed their petition on the National Assembly website.
They say it's not meant for kids, but all the marketing, the branding is specifically for them.
The parents met with the health minister. After the meeting, Sonia Bélanger said the government is seriously considering a ban on energy drinks for people under 16 or even 18.
On va examiner vraiment.
She said she will continue to work on this with Quebec Solidaire's health spokesperson Guillaume Clich-Rivard. He filed a request for the Health and Social Services Commission to study the issue ahead of the end of session in June.
I'm really hopeful. Truly, I really felt she was moved and touched by the testimony, and I felt like she came with options in her hand.
We're feeling hopeful that something good will happen, and that they might put something in place real quick.
Because she says if it happened to her son, it can happen to any child. Olivia O'Malley, CTV News, Quebec City.
Fuel prices have sparked new conversations about electric vehicles and talk that car maker Stellantis might potentially open a Chinese electric vehicle plant in Ontario. Certainly got people revved up this week. Kamal Karmali with both sides of the ongoing debate.
The demands are still there.
Here at this luxury used car dealership in Toronto, few electric vehicles.
Probably maybe about 5-6 EVs that we have in our showroom. Most of our cars are high-end European cars.
But that could soon change, with the hope Canada is opening its doors to Chinese manufacturers and Canadian drivers charged up for the change.
They're more effective, more efficient.
That is, as long as Chinese companies hire Canadian workers.
As long as it creates Canadian jobs.
I will support Canadian system for the job, not Chinese, obviously.
This week, Bloomberg reported car maker Stellantis is in talks with Chinese manufacturer Leap Motor to potentially start making electric vehicles at its idle plant in Brampton, Ontario. It's resulted in a chorus of opposition from the union on CTV's power play.
We have a commitment from Stellantis, and we expect them to live up to it.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford and the federal industry minister rejecting the plan over concerns China would send so-called knockdown kits to Canada. That's when EVs and their parts are mostly built in China, then sent to Canada, where only the final assembly would take place.
Like you would if you go buy IKEA furniture. You buy the full system and you screw it together and then you put it in your room. But that doesn't make you a manufacturer.
Flavio Volpe, who represents Canadian car parts manufacturers, says that would limit Canadian jobs. There is one path he sees where Chinese EVs could be made in Brampton, and that's being able to once again have access to North American parts to fully manufacture Chinese brand electric vehicles here.
which would be a full operation like it has been since 1962, and put 12,000 people back to work.
Now, there are plenty of bumps to navigate on the road ahead, including tariffs. But according to industry experts, if everything goes smoothly, there's a potential for the Brampton plant to start rolling out electric vehicles as early as by the end of this year. Kamal Koramali, CTV News, Toronto.
Still ahead, not respecting the law.
Please ensure you are wearing your seatbelt the way it was designed to be worn.
50 years later, and some still don't wear their seatbelt. Universities across Canada are offering some international students extra support as the war continues in the Middle East. McGill University students from the Middle East have special access to academic accommodations and mental health resources. In a statement to CTV News, Concordia University says some departments or faculties have written to students with a list of resources, from a mental health helpline to possible financial aid and short-term absence available to them. Queen's University is giving some students extensions on tuition and fee payments. Carleton is allowing for flexibility for students filing admissions documents and exam deferrals. Well, it's hard to believe there was a time when a seatbelt was not mandatory. In Ontario, it's been mandatory for 50 years, but as Angela Gemmell reports, some still don't respect the law.
It takes only seconds to snap in a seatbelt, but even after 50 years, it's a safety measure provincial police still have to enforce.
Most motorists are aware of the risks of not wearing a seatbelt, and OPP says compliance is high.
In general, I think it's stats show that most people do, or most drivers do, or most vehicle occupants do.
However, across Ontario last year, OPP laid a total of 13,560 charges to those not wearing a seatbelt. Also in 2025, 41 of the total road fatalities investigated by the OPP, not wearing a seatbelt was a contributing factor.
It saves not only lives, but serious injuries at times as well. So it just prevents occupants from being either ejected or possibly getting injured even more severely inside the vehicle during a collision.
Thibault says parents need to make sure children are buckled up and in the right car seat for their weight, height, or age.
By doing so, not only you're protecting yourself, but you're also ensuring that there's no tragedies and your family doesn't have to deal with the aftermath of you usually losing your life over not wearing a seatbelt.
This Easter weekend, OPP will be conducting the annual seatbelt campaign, checking that drivers and passengers are buckled up.
Please ensure you are wearing your seatbelt the way it was designed to be worn. Not under your arm and not behind your back. Both of those variations can result in you receiving a ticket for wearing your seatbelt improperly.
In Ontario, failing to wear a seatbelt carries a fine of between $200 and $1,000 plus 2 demerit points. Other consequences could be more deadly. Angela Gemmell, CTV News, Sudbury.
An Ottawa woman is on a mission to find a cure for a disease rarely diagnosed in young women. At just 37, Chantal Thériault was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's disease at the height of the pandemic. Now she's sharing her story to help others. Here's Leah LaRocque.
Just lack of control.
It started as a small tremor in Chantal Thériault's right hand that she could no longer ignore.
And then it moved from my hand to my arm, and it moved down to my leg, and I said, okay, it's time.
At just 37 years old, an unexpected diagnosis.
The news that he gave me, I thought for sure that he picked up the wrong chart, but he told me that I had Parkinson's disease.
Parkinson's disease is a brain condition that gradually affects movement, causing tremors, stiffness, and slower motion, more common in men and those over 40. The ICU program coordinator for more than 2 decades, now turning to the Ottawa Hospital for care.
It's tiring in the sense that even if I may not be shaking excessively on the outside, it's still happening on the inside. So it is tiring.
Thériault refused to give up what she loved, including kickboxing and her fitness regime. But she took it further, participating in clinical studies and research, including a smell test to help see how the nose and sense of smell affects those living with Parkinson's.
That's fair enough that you're guided by the options.
Mint.
Mint is the correct answer.
The new Ottawa Hospital campus site will include a building that's dedicated to neuroscience and geriatrics, and it's largely funded by philanthropy.
Thériault has also raised more than $50,000 over the years.
Parkinson's is 10 years behind Alzheimer's disease with all the discoveries.
Her doctor says her work in the trials and in fundraising is critical to help better understand the disease.
But the holy grail as to how do we stop it today, we're not there yet, but I'm very, very optimistic, and I always say to my wife, I don't retire until we're there, that in the next 10 years we'll have the intervention that really puts the brakes on the progression of the illness.
A story of research, resilience, and hope.
Why this is so important to me is because it's my future and other people's future.
Leah Larocque, CTV News.
For years, Canada has been seen as a safe place to invest. But a new report suggests red tape is driving away billions in projects. Kevin Green reports.
The Business Council of Alberta says complex, slow and unpredictable approval processes are making it harder to build major projects.
We have to make the business climate conducive so that we can compete with the United States, we can compete with Australia, we can compete with other parts of the world.
In its report released Monday, the Council calls for major changes, such as faster approval timelines, including a move to a one project, one review, one decision formula for approvals, cutting federal and provincial duplication and speeding up pipeline reviews as fast as 180 days for small pipelines, 250 days for large ones. Business leaders say without that, capital will continue to flow elsewhere.
We've really got to get to the point where we have certainty, and that is what investors are going to require to make these multi-billion-dollar investments in Canada.
The report points to lengthy approval timelines, saying with some projects taking years instead of months, it undermines investor confidence.
We've seen pipeline projects be abandoned, pipeline companies have left Canada. It's a regrettable circumstance, but one that has been driven in large part due to regulatory uncertainty.
Then there's the current push to build a new West Coast pipeline. It needs a private sector proponent to proceed. That company will need certainty to invest. Thus far, no one has stepped up.
You know, it's been 10 or 11 years, right, of unproductivity, so I think we can all wait a few days or weeks.
Enbridge is considered by many as one of the likely companies to fill that role, but Monday its vice president said that company hasn't spent any time or money on it.
One day, if the conditions are appropriate, you know, we'd seriously consider that. That's what we do, but we're not there yet.
Kevin Green, CTV News, Calgary.
From screen to stage, Broadway is using TV and movie favorites for inspiration. And as Will Gans reports, production costs are skyrocketing.
So many of our favorite flicks are going the distance, from screen to stage. This Broadway season featuring stage adaptations of TV shows like Schmigadoon and movies like Titanic, getting a Celine Dion-inspired makeover in Titanic.
I told you I would never let go.
Producing a Broadway show is pricier than it's ever been. For example, in 2015, the musical Something Rotten cost about $14 million to produce. A decade later, Death Becomes Her, with a similar cast size, costs more than double that.
Everything I do is for the game.
So producers are betting on familiar titles to draw in audiences.
People love the familiar. It can have legs for a very long time and be very successful.
But not all screen-to-stage adaptations work. Sylvester Stallone helped bring Rocky the Musical to the Broadway stage. But $20 million in production costs later, the show closed after just 188 performances. And Carrie, the wildly successful 1976 movie, flopped on Broadway, playing just 5 performances.
I have a theory that the more obscure a property is, the better it will do on Broadway. Hairspray, Kinky Boots, The Band's Visit, once were indie properties that ultimately came to the stage, and they all proved to be successful.
Just ahead, supporting Team Canada. Soccer fans are getting ready for the World Cup. With the countdown to the World Cup underway, there was fresh excitement in Toronto's Little Italy this weekend. Canada Soccer hosted what was supposed to be a jersey swap. The idea was for disappointed Italian fans to trade in their jerseys for a free Team Canada kit since their team was eliminated from World Cup qualification. But as a sign of unity, organizers told people to keep their Italian gear.
This is about uniting a country this summer. Thank you for being here. Thank you for wearing red. We're absolutely not taking any jerseys. Today was about honoring their dedication to the sport, the passion to the sport, by giving away free jerseys in order to have massive amounts of support when our guys take the field.
More than 100 Canada jerseys were snapped up. Canada kicks off its 2026 World Cup campaign on June 12th. Well, that's it for us. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening. We'll see you at 11:30.